Hello everyone and welcome to today's discussion. I'm very much looking forward to be talking about visual brand identity and narrative. Today I'm joined by the fantastic Arek, and we are going to be discussing a whole range of interesting insights which we have in both of our businesses about brand identity. We're going to be tackling this from a whole range of perspectives, so get ready to learn new things and reinforce things which you may already know. So what I'm going to do, without further ado, is ask Arek to introduce himself. He's very much looking forward to this discussion and has lots to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, Caitlin.
My pleasure.
So I come from a world of photography. So for the last 10 years, I've been photographing mostly businesses in Melbourne for their personal branding and so on. So I think that's where my expertise is coming from. But I am about to launch a visual media agency where we deal with a lot of photography, but mostly videos for businesses to help them transform into more receptive organizations.
Wonderful. And what inspired this for you? Where did this come from?
Oh, many levels.
Yes.
I realized that visual brand identity, effectiveness of it can be multiplied through adding other elements. So I used to see the world very visually. I still see the world very visually, but adding the narrative in the form of a spoken word, adding a story by using sequence of images and adding music to incite a bit more emotional input, then all that becomes a video, and it basically is so much more powerful than any of those elements by themselves. So the words, music, visuals, when combined, there's nothing really more powerful than that.
Absolutely. And I think in the world that we live in as well, with so much emphasis now on the visual element of businesses, it's really coming to the forefront. It is the new way. Words, as we're about to discuss, and as I absolutely am passionate about, are one element, but they're one of the many elements that make up a brand identity, as we'll be discussing today. So that's amazing that you're capturing this opportunity to work with your clients and give them these fantastic outcomes and brand identity, construction templates almost, you could call it.
Yes.
So
We'll talk about it in a minute, but
yes.
Let me know where you're up to now.
Thank you so much. Absolutely. There is so much coming and moving through my business for which I'm internally grateful and really excited. So I have always had a passion for words. Since I was 10 years old, I could never read enough. And what that's translated into now for me is a business which I'm absolutely delighted to work in every day. What I do with my clients is I do copywriting projects as well as grant research and writing. And what we do is we unlock their brand identity through words, whether they be written or spoken. The power of words certainly can't be underestimated, as with visuals. And it's something that I've found is a niche. It makes sense to me with my research background, as well as a lot of different client-facing industries, which I've worked in as well. So now it's onwards and upwards. It's ensuring that clients feel that the narrative which their business is actually telling really reflects them. It excites them, it ignites them, and it inspires them. And because I work across so many different industries, some people have never even realized how powerful their message can be, especially in, for example, the manufacturing space, the retail space, in the arts industry to a degree. And I get the opportunity day in and day out to work with my clients to capture the power of the words.
Yeah, so the words are powerful, and the words are the main thing that makes people, you can, that's a nice word, you can influence them through words.
Yes.
And the thing is, words can be consumed in almost any platform. So they can be printed out, so all the old-fashioned advertising, old-fashioned communications, books, newspapers, that's all words. Even slogans, jingles, whatever you hear, or it's all has to be words, right? Then the thing is, words can take a lot of processing time. So to read a proper article, to read a blog post, the blog post used to be very popular because that was the the nicest way to kind of get your message out there back in the day. Then it became microblogging, and then now these days it's video. And video basically combines the words with your visual branding, and I think that's what we will be talking about it today.
Yeah,
the visual branding.
Absolutely, and this is why you and I, have chosen this particular format so that we can demonstrate to people how powerful this really can be, and how accessible it is as well. If you may never have actually engaged with people who make it their business to ensure that the words that are being spoken, as well as the visual representation of the brand, is really front and center, because this ultimately is what is going to lead to business growth and development for you, for your clients, successful outcomes, and also an enjoyable experience, because life is far too short not to enjoy what we do for work. So indeed, we are going to be speaking about this today, and we're going to be sharing with you as well some subject matter expertise, which is very exciting, and we've been discussing many different angles to assist you all from this perspective. So we're going to start by really laying the foundations. So Iraq and I are going to be talking about how a visual brand identity lays a particular foundation, and how the narrative adds to that as well. So take it away again, Iraq. I'm really excited to listen to this.
So let's maybe set some base terms first. So,
Yes.
so branding per se, it's not just logo. It's not anything that comes to your mind right away. It's more about what people think when they think about your business. What do they say behind your back? How do they recommend you? What sort of words they choose to describe you or what you do, or all those things that you are putting out there and how it's being received. That's your brand. The visual brand is the visual element of that. So that includes the way you're dressed, the way who you're seen with, how you're being seen, where are you being seen, what's the quality of the medium that people see you in. So all the visual elements put together, and it includes a lot of those categories that we may talk about. So in the narrative sense, I think apart from the medium people see you and the quality of the medium, so a selfie as opposed to professional production, right? That's a big difference there in positioning. But then who are you being seen with? Are you being seen with someone people respect in the industry, like each other, right? Like what you're doing right now? Or if they see you in your bathroom or living room with cat running behind you, that's a different environment that influences how people receive everything.
Absolutely, and as you alluded to, the story that creates. And what can be interesting as well that people need to try to remember is doing a selfie, although I highly do not recommend it. Think about what story that tells people, how they'll, as you said, interpret it. Are you wanting to build more rapport, but in a very casual sense? I mean, is that your industry? But as I've discovered with many of my clients, it doesn't necessarily build rapport. Doing selfies, and people have a lot of respect for people, and they can tell the production quality. Our clients are highly intelligent people who are very experienced throughout their careers, and their clients really respect when they put that additional effort in, when they really mold and sculpt that story and that visual identity, and people will flock to that. Birds of a feather flock together, as they say. So, where I come into the piece as well is I incorporate, of course, a visual identity, which I am developing, as we all do, as it evolves, which will be a fascinating thing to speak about as well, as identities evolve, visual and narrative. And then what I decide to do, of course, very collaboratively, is I actually have discussions with my clients and for my own business with myself and other business advisors, and we talk about how a narrative can support the image. So our foundation actually starts with an image, which is very interesting when my core business is words, and it says a lot about the current market and climate, as we talked about before. Yeah. So I start with the foundation of an image, or an image that may not currently exist, but it may exist eventually. And then from there I think, okay, what words would beautifully support this and elevate it? How could this be communicated even more clearly, concisely, and with more clarity with the addition of words? And sometimes as well, it's about knowing what not to include. Sometimes minimal words are actually the way to go, rather than adding words for the sake of it. Particularly, as you said before, with jingles and brand logos and different catchphrases, when you talk too much, have too many words, it dilutes your message. So I'd be curious to hear from your perspective, with diluting messages and having that really crisp brand image and identity, how are some ways that people can go about achieving this visually, to have that crisp, clear messaging?
It's all about curation, I think. But it's interesting when you said that you start with an image and then add work around to create words around it. Yes. I actually go from the other way around. Before I create an image, I extract all the information, all the words from my clients, just to understand who they want to appeal to, what they want to represent with themselves, where they want to be positioned in their clients' eyes, how are they different from everyone else in their industry, and all these things. I have to understand those things, and my role is to translate their words into visual language that then is received by the recipients who their audience is. I'm not even saying client's audience in general. And yeah, so that's very interesting that we start from completely opposite ways, but I think it's a circle of life. So then the image builds on the words, and then the words upgrade, and it evolves, co-evolves together.
Yes, and it's really that interplay and that discussion that the image and the words have. And yes, words and images can have discussions as well, and how therefore that's interpreted by people. And I think that real hybrid approach is very important. I'll give everyone a little bit of an insight, and of course yourself, into why I start with an image. I have a fine arts background, so I am trained in the fine arts, and for me, I'm a highly visual person. I always have been. So my point of inspiration is usually an image, whether it's one I'm imagining, as I mentioned, one that's in my frame of reference because I've seen it at a museum, or I've seen someone's fashion inspired me, or I've been to a presentation of a professional speaker and thought, fantastic, and the image of them speaking then creates inspiration for other projects. Yeah. So these images are varied, and then the words tend to flow with that naturally. So that's how I form that very solid foundation. So as we know, from foundations, we like to grow. And moving forward from that, it's really interesting to be able to direct and layer our approaches so that our clients can really see, and their audience, as you mentioned, can really see the full breadth of what they can anticipate and get excited. Because ultimately that's what we're trying to do, excite the people we're working with and delight them. So once you've established your foundations, Arak, what are your next steps as well with the people that you work with?
So it's basically three steps.
Sure.
The first step is coming up with the whole strategy. So we have to know why we're doing that, who are we targeting, who do we have to appeal to, what do we want them to take from it, what do we want them to do with it, how do we want them to act. So every image, every frame, every piece of content I'm putting out there is curated to a specific purpose, and it's created specific to that purpose. So the creation of that content, that's kind of the daily work, but that's not the exciting bit, right? The exciting bit is coming up with all the different possibilities and coming up with this vision for the future, and then production element is just executing it. And the final stage is then implementing it, because I can create amazing videos, I can create amazing photographs, but if people don't use them or don't use them right, they're not going to bring them the results. But knowing what we want the final product to do is crucial in production and then in implementation. Okay. So it's any of those three elements by themselves don't really do much. You have to have all three put in place. This 1, 2, 3 punch kind of thing.
Interesting. And you also have that overarching objective.
Yes.
So you really, how do you come, because this is a very interesting process, and every person in any creative industry or any business has a slightly different approach. What's your approach to finding and really honing in on this objective, and how you can maximize the results for your client and or your client's audience?
Yeah, so it's all about being very specific. Okay. So for example, when we talk about personal branding, because I think a lot of your audience will be interested in that.
Yes.
So then the person becomes the brand. Their position in the market is very important, how they're being received and everything else. And we have to, one of the things we're discussing is, who are we speaking to? Who are your clients? What would they like to see in a person that you want to represent? What sort of experience you can offer to them? What else do you do? How do you do it? Who are you with? Where do you go? All those things we answer, right? So we have this picture of a person, and then we just create images specifically from all over that picture. And for example, so if I'm talking to a client, I need to know where that photograph or that movie is going to be put, right? So if it's going to be on the website, it's going to be a big header, it's going to be different than a profile photo for LinkedIn. A completely different composition, completely different everything. So it has to communicate different things. It will be cropped differently. So everything is different about it. And I won't take a photo until I know where it's going, because I cannot feel comfortable creating it without knowing what it's going to achieve. So, and the same thing can be done from 15 different angles. So then that's where the creativity comes in. So when we're doing just a basic headshot or a simple promo video or something like this, there's hundreds and hundreds of ways to do it. And then matching the way that the artist can create to make it congruent with the subjects or clients' vision for themselves and vision for the future. That's where the key is. But all the technical aspects to make it work in the final stages have to be kept along the way.
And that's where your subject matter expertise comes into play. All those variables, they're infinite, really, because every business is different. Therefore, every business, requires that particular attention. And that's fantastic that you are so clear from the outset with what you want to achieve and also why you want to achieve it, because ultimately both of our clients that we work with, they're time poor to an extent, and they really do need something to have maximum value. So when they can use that on multiple platforms, whether it be their socials, whether it be their website, whether it be in promotional videos, if they have certain product or service offerings, with really woven into the texture of that particular product or service as well. So I delight as well in having the opportunity to work out, okay, so how can we use this particular piece of writing or presentation, as I mentioned before, I do the public speaking too. How can we assist someone to use this in as many ways as possible, where it's still highly relevant, very important, and it's not so far out of context that their audience can't understand and see the connections. So that's something that I am very mindful of as well.
So I usually produce something for a very specific purpose, but once that's created and it's doing its job, then we can look at ways how we can repurpose it. So the same image, same video can then be used somewhere else with minor tweaks perhaps, because it was created for a very specific purpose, but doesn't mean it ends there. We can then chop it up, use it, recrop it, we can change it up and use it in other ways for the benefit and kind of to recycle the same content in many different ways. But I want to talk maybe how the words and the visual language come together. So when I'm photographing for websites, for example, or even for social media, it's not just a photograph on the website, there's always some words next to it. So I'd like to know where that photograph is going, knowing to the extent what is the heading, right next to it, what's the H1 or H2 right next to the photograph, and what's the paragraph going to say. And the same thing goes for social media. What is the post about? Because without knowing those things, I cannot create that image to work congruently with it. Because I found that we all probably do the same thing. So if you visit a new website right away, the first thing you see is the visual design. So just if it looks professional, if it's sleek, if it's modern, you can tell right away if it's a modern website or it's been done in the 90s, right away, right? Or even 2000s or 2010s or even 2 years ago. Very easy, and it takes a hundredth of a second to get that impression, and that impresses on us our experience on it. Then people skim, and they skim looking at the photographs, maybe reading the headings, and only if they find things interesting or relevant or intriguing, then they stop and then they read the copy. So without a good heading or headline or a good photograph, people won't stop to read the words that you work so hard to create. So creating the right way to bring their attention to a specific portion is very crucial. And also not giving them, I call it a sea of text. We don't want a block of text that is not formatted, it's huge, it will take us minutes and minutes to read. We don't have time for that. So we want to break it up into smaller sections. I usually recommend people use very short paragraphs. I call them breath-long paragraph. So if you take a breath, you should be able to read the whole thing in one breath, because people intuitively are more likely to take upon reading that if they estimate that they won't take them that long.
Interesting. And to that, as you were saying, you know, that real unison and that harmony, I would call it, and that is what I call it with my clients, the harmony between the visual and also the words, you know, in whatever sort of way they're represented. This is something that I do as well in terms of talking to my processes. So for the assistance that I give my clients with copywriting, which is one element of my business, as I mentioned before, I'm really sure in that brief to make sure of the visual layout of the page, even the blank spaces, because they say something as well. You know, a page that is overcrowded, both in a visual image element as well as with the words, it can leave someone feeling, it's about the feeling it creates. So words are associated with feelings, as we're all aware. However, when you put words in a different sort of context, when you can be very clever and work out what feelings that you want to aim to generate amongst your audience, or even just point to gently, this is where the harmony starts between the images and between the words. I agree with you 100%, 110%, that you don't want a sea of words. No one wants to read a sea of words. Even people like myself who love to read, what it says to me if there's a sea of words is a few things. Firstly, where's the prior discussion? Have they really come to an understanding of what purpose those words are serving? Secondly, are the words necessary? What do they add? What texture do they add? What value do they add? Are they telling the story from so many perspectives it can become convoluted? Or are they there purely just to take up space? If the answer is yes to that final question, I would highly recommend cutting down and cropping back the words. No one wants to be left with the impression that someone doesn't even understand what they're trying to say, or that they say it for so long. Now, maybe you're thinking, why does that matter on a website? Why does that matter in brochures? Why does that matter in the grants for research and writing? Well, it does matter. Because if that particular person, if you're offering a product or a service, and they're going to interact with you at a later date, and you're writing seas of words, when you're sitting and talking with them in a meeting, what can you anticipate? A sea of words. What can you also anticipate? Not being heard. And therefore, the outcome you can anticipate is not one that is mutually conducive to being good for both parties. Yeah. So it's amazing. And these are the layers that someone who has expertise in these areas, this is what we're familiar with because we deal with this day in and day out. We experience this. We think really deeply about these particular topics. So this is something and the expertise that we can bring to our clients. We can even just offer them the opportunity to be aware of that. Some people may not have ever contemplated that how you represent yourself in a written form actually is how you represent yourself in a, three-dimensional form when you're actually meeting with the various, external contacts you have with your business or clients or whoever the people may be. So this is an element that's really important in my process. As you talked about as well, having that discussion, really, as I mentioned before, listening. And not listening to respond, as I've mentioned before in some of the videos that I have created and discussions that I've been part of, listening to understand. So listening to understand, who is that person? Who are they now? Who do they want to be? And where have they come from? That is a narrative. And it's not necessarily linear, as I just mentioned. It is a cycle, and it's forever changing. consciously or subconsciously. And that's interesting when you get to the subconscious level as well with that storytelling, particularly when it comes to business, given how much weight of responsibility can be placed on people who are very senior in their businesses, who may be the business owners, they may be the executive team within the business, or people that support that executive team. So one part of my process, once we've had that brief, okay, what's once again your objective? What does this hope to serve? The next topic I actually look at is, what opportunities can this particular project create? And the interesting response I usually get from that is, but what do you mean? I just want you to work on this project with me. And I say, all right, so have you thought about what could come after this? What this could result in? Your opportunities to build upon this, to really help this elevate and build that brand identity that you're putting so much effort into. So once their eyes light up and once they realize that potential and that opportunity, we discuss that opportunity, what that broad range could look like. Once we've done this particular process, then we get to work. This is where the magic happens. This is where multiple elements of their team and my team as well come together, and we make sure that we're really working clearly together and that we are sure of what both parties are bringing to the table and how we're going to work towards that outcome together. So when I'm working with people to build that brand identity and that narrative around it, it's very important that those open discussions are had, where people don't necessarily feel like they need to hold back. After all, if I can get a sense of their authentic language, I can build an authentic brand identity. And that's the point that takes sometimes many hours, weeks, months. It's very detailed work, but if clients are really invested and interested, the results are unbelievable and often far exceed their expectations. So that's a bit around my process, and I can see some interesting crossover as well in terms of you and I both start with that briefing process, and in the instance of websites, we both start about structure, foundations.
Yeah.
What are we building? Why are we building it? And how can we build it? So we've spoken about this process, this element. I'm curious, how does this play out for yourself in terms of the videography, the photography, all the discussions which you have? How in real life does this play out with your client? And how have they had those light bulb moments? What has it actually meant for them? Feel free to be as specific as you like.
Yeah. So I've got many of those stories, even from the days where before even I did video. So even with photography, most clients would come to me thinking they need a headshot. And by headshot, they were thinking something I compare to passport photo. So a photo of them looking at the camera, shoulders and up on a white background. That's what they think they needed.
Yes.
During the discussion, we then discovered that that's the last thing they do need, because this doesn't differentiate them from anyone else. This doesn't tell anyone anything they need to know about what they do, what they represent, how they do things. And then we go into all the discussions of everything else we can do about it. So anything about the experience they offer to the clients. So they never considered showing their clients in the photographs working with them, or them working with their clients. That's a really, really important piece of content, that when their client sees a photograph that represents that person working with people that they can identify themselves with, they also look at where they are. Is it in a coffee shop? Is it in a field? Is it in the office? Is it in a conference room? So everything plays a huge difference into how it's being received. But it's crucial to have your clients represented in the photographs in a way that they can identify themselves with. So that basically sets the expectations right. Then we go through everything else, what the sales process looks like, the testimonial photographs and video, everything else that you mentioned, presentations and public speaking, being on, showing them on a stage, audiences that positions them as an expert. And we should talk about positioning That's really
Sure,
important.
okay.
Yes.
We'll make sure we talk
Yeah,
about that.
positions them as an expert on, and then how big is the stage? Who's in the audience? Are we talking to? Are we talking during a gala dinner? Are we talking about professional training or a conference, or who's introducing them to the stage and so on? So all those things play a huge role, and we just build on that. And that's even before we begin with video. Video takes that to 10th level. So.
Absolutely. So maybe have you got a client in mind who you loved working with because of the outcomes they received and how excited they were by them? Can you think of someone in mind that, your videography clients, of which you have many and had many in the past, to really give people a sense of how our expertise can translate, into working with our clients and what results that can really get for them?
Not sure how specific should I get, but let's talk about, a certain lady.
Yes.
Certain lady that helps women from her local boutique in the outer suburbs. So she helps women with a specific problem. She came to me because she was updating her website. She needed a few photographs of her and her staff and the boutique. So that project extended into creating a whole visual identity for her, then creating a video where she, in an emotional way, makes her clients understand why she's doing what she's doing. And then that's leading now into the whole strategy to let her reach her clients globally. So she was trapped in one little boutique. She opened another one on the other side of the city, but she was then traveling between them. She had to train new staff and so on. Now she wants to expand a little bit, and video now comes into its own, because now we can create content where she's building a position and the expertise, the perceived expertise to a worldwide audience. So people now can contact her from all over the world. She can then help them through Zoom consultations, but then the physical products that she used to do in her boutique, she now sends to local boutiques in that person's vicinity, along with the video instructions to the technicians who will be applying those products in a way that she's confident about the quality of the product and the quality of the training she gave to the specialists so far away that she never would have been able to work with them. So video helps her in two ways. One is to answer to a global audience all the questions they have about the product. Mm-hmm. This is a very I don't want to reveal too much. It's a very hard time that those women are going through. It involves cancer and diseases. But she transformed their lives and their perception and their feeling and everything else. And this usually comes with a lot of questions from them. So her being able to answer those questions and help women across the world is a huge thing. And then be able to provide them the service and the product even around the world, ensuring the quality along the way. It's all just due to the video. And it started with a simple couple photos for a new brochure, and because she was opening a boutique.
And then the magic happens.
And the magic
then
happens.
Business strategy.
Yes.
It formed almost an entire business strategy. And this is the thing, when we open our mind up to the possibility and potential of things, it's incredible how they expand. So, similar instances for myself as well with developing business strategies with clients. And I work with clients who have varied backgrounds as well. Some of them do deal as well with very sensitive information, or their client base, for whatever reason, it is quite a sensitive topic of what they work on. Others, it's sensitive because it is new age. It's not out there. It's technology that is right on the edge. In fact, it's not just the edge, it is the edge. That's how new that technology is. And I also delight in having these opportunities to really take a deep dive, which is exactly what you're just talking about, and for this particular woman, how you've changed her life for the better, how you've used brand identity to propel her to whole new heights. She may have had a moment pinching herself and thinking, is this real? This is where my business is going, and look at how far my vision can spread. And also the pragmatics, as well as you were saying, traveling between multiple business spaces with the incredible features of technology which we now have. People don't need to make those quantum leaps. We can communicate so clearly with different platforms as well, and that's a slightly different topic we won't talk about today, but the visual brand identity, the technology, the incredible videography and photography, that can do so much more than what many people believe to be the case from the outset. So that's a topic for another time, potentially. But when you mentioned positioning, this got me thinking about clients that I work with, and particular stories that I have in my mind as well, and how they position themselves initially, and then as you work through the different phases of the project with them, what happens and how they evolve and how they transform. And the work that I do, and one of my clients once said this to me, they said to me, how do you describe yourself in Clarified Solutions? I said, well, I'm a business strategy consultant. And they said, how do you describe your technique? And I looked at them and I thought, well, I'm not often lost for words. I said, what specifically do you mean? They said, well, your approach, what outcome does it create for your clients? I said, well, it's transformative. And she went, that's it. It's transformative.
Yeah.
It's transformative coaching, transformative consultation. And ultimately, for those of us who are aware that we're forever creating fresh versions and sides of our identity, it is transformation that we're working towards. So one client in particular who, once again, I shall not talk about specifics in terms of who this client is, so that she can maintain her privacy, but what she does is incredible. This particular client works very closely with her clients on very sensitive topics, intimate topics, about the various relationships which they have, and the way they relate to certain people in their families and beyond as well. And this client draws upon an incredible range of experience and a huge amount of learning. So you can imagine the narrative they already bring to their brand identity. They know that they have been trained, for example, by Tony Robbins. They know they've been trained by a whole range of other names, which I won't go into today. And this gives them that vantage point. This positions them as a subject matter expert and as someone who is so grounded within themselves, in their own identity, that the next step for them is thinking, okay, my identity is grounded as a human being. I'd like to create a brand identity as well that's linked directly to this person. I mean, their brand is their name. So, it's very, very important how they're represented. And with this particular person, so as we worked together, it was amazing seeing these light bulb moments, and that's what I call them, light bulb moments. You see the glint in people's eyes, you see their mind going into fifth gear, you can just see all of these things happening for them when previously they'd limited the scope of possibility of the work on the project you're doing together to this. And then when it starts to creep and they realize, my goodness, there's so much, they ask them questions, more engaging and open-ended questions, and then you're able to really layer that brand identity. So the process unfolds naturally and very organically, which I think is very important for my approach with my clients. All of the clients I work with are founders, CEOs, managing directors, as I mentioned earlier in this discussion. And these are people who every single day are questioned. Who are you? What do you represent? Why should I work with you? Why shouldn't I work with you? And they are consciously aware of this, sometimes too consciously aware. And that's another side of the coin as well. So with this particular experience I had with this client of mine, we went through these incredible rounds. It was very detailed. So I designed the copywriting collaboratively, of course, but I was giving a lot of input for a brand new look website for this particular client. She really opened up and trusted me with helping frame this brand identity. And by the time we were finished, I remember clicking open that website for the first time once it had been updated by the technical team and IT experts that were behind it as well. I remember opening the website And I remember the feeling that I got, knowing how much was involved. Every button, every color, code and color gradient, and every image, every choice of word, every navigational technical tool that we'd used and we discussed, every single element. It's all synthetic. We create everything in this site, and that's what's brilliant about it. But in a way, we also needed to work through that, make it more human, build that brand, build that story, not make it as technically brilliant as it was, sort of soften those elements a little bit, but still have them there in the background to serve the purpose that they serve. And I remember this feeling of opening this website, and I don't normally do this with clients, and I of course was doing this in the privacy of my own office, but I could feel like tears in my eyes, because I knew, and I said this to my client whilst we were working together. I said to her, these product descriptions that I'm writing right now for you, what do you think they're going to do in the coming years and eventually maybe decades, unless the product has changed? I said, what do you think the outcome is going to be? And she looked at me, and I remember her looking and squinting and saying, what? She's a very straightforward person, and she says it as she thinks it, which is brilliant, and I appreciate that. She went, what are you talking about, Caitlin? And I said, these product descriptions are the link between people first becoming aware of this product or service you offer, the critical moment where they decide what to do next, and then what they do. And I said to her, my wish for you, and what I believe these product descriptions will do with all of your expertise you bring to your work, is these product descriptions are going to create hundreds of thousands of dollars of sales. And I said it straight. I stand behind it because I know it will. And she sat back in her chair and she looked at me and she said, yes, it will. There we are. The power of narrative. I knew that each element of this website were going to be very powerful because there were high-end products which she was offering. I knew the dollar value of them that they represented. And I knew that most certainly at least 10 to 20 to 30, as things roll along, would easily be achieved. And that's what value it represents from a financial perspective. Because of course you and I, we're always thinking about this for our clients. We want them to be successful. We want them to be in a business ecosystem that's self-supporting. And that's what we're part of. And I see it as such a privilege to be part of that and to be able to be a part of the expertise that they draw upon for their different projects. So these stories, as you can tell from me, even recounting it, it's powerful. And this is how we live our lives. We tell our lives through stories. And ultimately, I personally believe my business philosophy and personal philosophy is our story is our greatest gift, because that is ultimately how things will play out for us. That is what we offer others, and that is what we offer ourselves as well. So with that all in mind, and with these incredible clients that we have the privilege to work with, let's maybe hone in a little bit more on positioning. This is a really interesting topic of discussion, and it's one where I feel like business strategy and our expertise in that can come to the forefront. So when we talk about positioning, maybe let's define it as we did before with brand identity. What does that even mean? So when I'm talking about positioning, I'm thinking about all of those external factors that you mentioned before. Being aware of your audience, being aware of the scale of the audience, being aware of the specific projects you hope that it will lead to, or clients it will lead to. But also when I think about positioning as well, I think about positioning in terms of that person and their team, their business, whoever they work with. Where are they at in their career? Why are they there? Where do they want to go? What are their next 3-4 major steps in their career? And how is this contributing to that? So that's my notion of positioning. What does it mean to you and your services? What does positioning mean?
Comes together with visual branding or brand identity, but it's all about where people position you in the hierarchy of everything.
Yes.
So what's the difference? We've got two great artists. One is selling amazing pieces for $5 from a pavement, from a sidewalk at a tourist spot.
Yes.
The same artist, positioned differently, can sell very similar pieces for hundreds and thousands of dollars from an upscale art gallery with curators and art critics wooing around them, right? Positioning is completely different, right? So if they are doing those at a touristy spot, when it's this quick, very quick thing, they can sell them for $5, maybe $50 if they're good. But then there's a difference between the guys who sell the same thing for $5 and the ones who sell for $50. But if we put them in a lovely gallery, write articles about them, show them traveling the world and being trained or working with famous artists or curators or art directors and creating and showing that their piece has been sold to city of New York or something really out there, right? That positions them so much more. And the same piece of paper with the same colors, same style, can be picked up from the $50 or $5 touristy spot and be put in a gallery and sold for $500,000. The same one. It's all about the position there. So when people are asking me, once they understand that they need photography or video, it's like, I can do it myself, or I can get my neighbor to do it, or I can, I can get a cheaper videographer or photographer to do it. I'm saying, yes, but then you're not looking at the position, right? Then how much are you worth? How much do you want to be paid, right? And are you the cheapest in your industry? And they go, no, I'm not the cheapest. I'm one of the more expensive. So you have to position yourself there. Because people, when they view the photograph of you or the video or read the words, anything that's connected to you, that needs to be reinforced. And at every stage, and it takes only one bad image, something that you didn't think through when you were wearing thongs while you took that photo of you, or the car you drive, the way you dress, everything, the words you use in your normal presentation, everything positions you in the eyes of your audience, in the minds of your audience. And it's up to them to then discern your value from that. That's why it's crucial to be mindful of that and working always to increase your position and never undermine it with anything that is done sub-quality, with a lower quality or without the thought behind it. What do you think about that?
Oh, I think that's fascinating. And I like how much detail as well. You gave people so much information, and this is the sort of discussion where people can ponder this over and over again and take away whatever they would like from it as well. This is years worth of learning for many people, and some people don't gain this wisdom in a lifetime. So it's wonderful that people have got the opportunity to gain this wisdom from yourself and myself, and we're really speeding up the process for them. One thing I think about positioning as well is when you talk about the relationship, and the way that subject matter experts, in our fields, come together with our clients. What we're doing by positioning them is, as I mentioned just now, we're speeding up their process. We're propelling them at a much faster rate than they'd be able to achieve themselves. And that's why, as a society, as a working group of people, we specialize. So yes, we can be generalists, but within our generalization, we specialize. Now, why is that? Well, because our lifetimes don't last 450 years. To learn the skills that you and I have, for example, it's taken us decades, literally decades. And that particular person, they may not want to invest their time learning our skills, nor do they need to. We all excel and gravitate towards different things. You and I absolutely adore visual. Both of us enjoy the writing elements as well. And our clients don't need to necessarily. They know the power of it, they know the necessity of it, but they don't need to know it as intimately and all of the technical elements which we do. That's what we bring to the table. One thing I was thinking as well, and as I was really contemplating what you were saying and what this could mean as well, moving forward for me and learning from this discussion, is what we've done is we've talked about our clients' position, our position, how we relate. The third element, and the somewhat more silent element that we need to anticipate, is our client's audience. The people that are receiving whatever the project is. And in my case, some of my clients' audiences are highly skilled people in very particular industries. They pick up on everything, and they may not not be as kind with their advice as I am being. As much as I am strategic and fairly straightforward, I do tend to really offer that supportive note to my clients as well. But my clients, for example, they're not always silent, but sometimes silent audience include government officials, include fellow CEOs in industry, competitors in other industries. They include subsets of groups of employees. They include prospective clients who can be fairly brutal in their scrutiny. And it includes a whole plethora of people. Now, what's interesting when you relate this back to positioning, and this was just a spark of inspiration in my mind, with how I have discussions with my clients about how they position themselves as it relates to their audience. So first and foremost, and this is a bit of marketing, and this is a whole nother subset of our skill and expertise as well. When you think about how you position yourself, in relation to the audience, who is your audience? And the amount of clients I speak with, and I'm talking clients that have a significant amount of business responsibility, a fairly large business, and report into different streams of other businesses or their clients and so on, and they're not able to answer initially, potentially, who their audience is. What industries are you talking to? How old are they? What's their background and experience? What are their interests? How do you feel they would relate to you? Why, the golden question, why do they relate to you? Why do they want your services? And why are they even interested in the discussion that you're trying to have with them? So I really strip it right back to these foundations of positioning and how you position yourself with an audience, some of whom you may never have direct contact with. That is what is so challenging. However, the flip side of that coin, it's dangerous if you don't know who your audience is. If you talk to everyone, someone once said to me, I think this is brilliant, one of my clients said to me, if you talk to everyone, you talk to no one.
No one. Yeah.
And if you talk to no one, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Why are you even bothering with all of this complexity and challenge? So when I think about it in the context of that particular amazing wisdom and statement from this client of mine, I thought to myself, okay, so who do they want to talk to? Let's hone in, let's focus. And when we do that, let's take the practical steps in order to actually achieving whatever that may be. So when you're positioning yourself, you're thinking about in the moment, but also thinking about how to expand as we keep coming back to, and we hope that for the audience, you realize that this is such a significant point, and that is why we do keep alluding to it. So I think about that third party as well. And when you talk about positioning as a holistic approach, as I was doing right at the beginning of this discussion point, I think about it as the synergy between the three and how energy flows between them and how discussions and communication and therefore understanding flows as well. And it's very important to have those connection points, to have those communications about what it is each party is trying to achieve. Because interestingly, of course, we can't forget, the audience of our clients are also trying to achieve something. They want to find a solution. They want to solve an issue, or they want to create opportunities for themselves. So, what are your thoughts on this, Irek? In terms of when you realize that your client has honed in on a particular area using brand identity, of course, your client is doing this. How is it that they first identify that their client has an issue or an area of expansion, and then how is it that you use the brand identity with their audience in mind to actually really leverage that and create that opportunity for them to service their client as best they possibly can?
That's kind of where I usually begin on my work anyway.
Yes, fabulous.
So it's very important for me to understand who are we creating it for, right? So you and I, when we work for our clients, we don't create for them. Everything we do is for their clients, for their audience. So the words you create is not for your client to read over and over every day. This is to be in his or her materials, and they go out and they have to appeal to someone else. The same thing with photography or videos. I don't do them for my clients, unless we're talking about, let's say, portraits that would hang on someone's wall, yes, these are for you then. But if we're doing that in a business sense,
Yes.
the photographs I would take of you are not for you. They would be on your page, on your social media, but you don't have to like them. As long as your audience is attracted by them, or communicates something to your audience, or it resonates with them, that's the important bit.
All right, so we've been discussing different vantage points that people come from in this audience. So we've been talking about positioning and been talking about this trio of elements, it being ourselves, our clients, and their audience. So in terms of that silent member, that audience, that is so critical and often overlooked, what are your thoughts on this? How can we and our clients really reach out to them and engage them in the process as well?
The thing is, what we are both doing, what we create, we don't create it for our clients. We create it for their audience. So we have to reach through them to their audience. That's why it's very crucial that we know who their audience are, what they expect to hear, how we want them to think about our clients and so on. Because whatever I'm creating, I create it for them. So the photographs that I would take of my clients are not for them. I don't care if they like them. I don't care if they like them,
Right.
because if they like them, it's secondary to me. It's more about if their audience responds to it, it does
Yes.
what we want them to do. So either purchase the product, or sign up for the webinar, or buy the book. All the things we want them to do by seeing the videos or photographs, it's all aimed at them, not the client I'm working with. However, the way I see how I work with my clients, I help them help other people. So most of my clients are in industries that somehow help others. I mean, they wouldn't be successful if they weren't bringing some value to other people. I try to help as many people as I can through working with amazing clients who help other people. So by making them even more successful, letting them focus on what they do, and give them the chance to help even more people, I feel like I am helping them as well.
Yes, absolutely. And you're able to reach their audience by assisting them. So it's, as you were saying right at the beginning of the discussion, it's that multiplier effect. We're able to magnify, our expertise, ours and our clients' expertise, and create something really incredible for their audience. And I'm often thinking of ways how I can value add as well. My clients are fully aware of who their audience is and what their audience expectations is in many cases. Sometimes not, and I can offer advice as to what it could be, therefore that we can really accommodate that and make sure that what we're creating from a brand identity and narrative perspective speaks to those perspectives of that specific target segment of audience that we have identified as wanting to use for that particular project or in their entire business. And you're right, it's, our clients do amazing things for other people. I'm quite particular in terms of who I work with as well, and therefore the clients that I work with, it gives me unlimited joy and a sense of satisfaction to see the outcomes for them, because I know what that means for people moving forward. One of my clients at the moment, can't go into any detail with this because of how significant this product is that's being developed. However, what I can say is that there are people for example, they are in the technology space, that's what I'll say. There are people that are developing very important products that are going to assist people to connect and relate and really, inspire people in their whole lives. It will touch on every part of their life. So being able to have the opportunity to learn from and also mentor these particular clients, that for me is what drives me and I enjoy, and what is part of the constant evolution process for myself as well. Because with any art form, we also want to feel like we're evolving. We want to work with a greater range of clients so that we can take all of these different narratives and create this amazing overall picture, so that our workplace satisfaction is also, factored in there somewhere as well. So, you know, when it comes to this discussion of evolution, you know, and where we're going and what we want to do, have you got some visions of things which you're wanting to do moving forward? So maybe some new and exciting things as well that we can share with the audience listening today.
Yeah, so I think that the most exciting thing that's happening in my life right now, apart from my little boy, who is now 10 and a half months, is how I'm restructuring and rethought everything that I do. I started last year. I went to the lockdown as a photographer. I emerged as a creative director and founder of a marketing, video production company.
Yes.
And I now have amazing people working with me. I've got amazing videographers and photographers, editors, sound engineers, animators, graphic designers. I brought a beautiful team together so I can help my clients on many, many other levels. Today we were talking more about branding, and which is part of marketing, but with the power of video and photography, I can help my clients, organizations reach other levels on many fronts. So marketing is only one way to give them more leads, but then helping them also convert those leads into great clients. It's another huge area there, but I don't stop there. So with me, the strategy also involves fixing or helping improve all the aspects of their internal processes as well. So for example, if a huge example would be recruitment videos. Now it's very important for those big companies that are making strides to to grow and get the right people on board. The right people on board, that means they need to attract the person who wants to work within the environment and align with their culture, the office values, all those things. So video is a very powerful way to sift through potential candidates, so only the best ones apply and get excited to join. Training videos, compliance videos, all those things that are behind the scenes that the clients wouldn't really see, but it's crucial for overall amazing operation of the company, especially if they're growing at a pace that they cannot keep up with doing all those things in person. So training is a huge part of it, especially if they're opening remote offices and they need to have the cohesion across the spectrum. So when I take clients on, I look at a very holistic, very integrative approach. I take a very integrative approach into the business. So we look at all the different aspects, from bringing clients and converting them, but also helping them grow to that next level.
Fantastic. I'm so pleased. And there'll be so many more things coming your way as well, as I am sure. Us being creative people, we're always looking for opportunities. For myself, there is so much on the horizon. I feel incredibly humbled and grateful for the opportunity. Where I see a huge opportunity for growth within my business, and which is already happening, is because I'm a B2B business. There are so many ways that we can work with other businesses, whether they be in a client sort of capacity or a collaborator. Clients can also collaborate too, of course, but when I mean collaboration, for example, it's the merging of that expertise to create an even different type of outcome and product or service for the clients that we both work with together. So there are some really exciting opportunities which I'm exploring at the moment with a whole range of different skill sets. I mean, we're talking from everything from the IT world through to business executive coaching and so on. And this will be coming to fruition over the next few months, years, and so on. That's where I'm really taking my business, and I'm looking forward to expanding that pool of clients that I work with as well. In terms of the clients that I most enjoy working with, it's people that have creative processes, people that are innovative. I don't limit myself to a specific industry because I don't think that's necessary. I know how highly transferable these written and verbal communication skills are, and certain industries particularly need assistance because of the lack of emphasis placed on them in their training and in their learning to be able to do what they do. So for me, The next project will be collaborations. It will be incredible. I thoroughly enjoy being able to spotlight expertise as I see it in the community. We exist, as you know, in an amazing business community here in Melbourne. There is so much happening constantly. And even though, yes, we had a very challenging year last year on many fronts for many businesses, but what we've done is we've taken that opportunity to learn, to grow, and to come back even better. So I see that as challenging it is, and I also appreciate that people are still very much challenged by it in a lot of different ways, and I feel for those people, and I hope to support them eventually if that's possible in different ways. However, what I have noticed and what I choose to focus on as well is the strides forward that people are taking. Businesses are growing and expanding. Businesses are casting their gaze out. I've done some fantastic international collaborations already. More of those are going to be coming, and that's what I really encourage our audience to do as well, is to think about those opportunities internationally to expand your catchment area, not necessarily your target audience, but your catchment area of that target audience, and just enjoy as those different client inquiries come through for them, and as your brand identity grows and adapts to that as well. So you and I are evolving, we're moving in great directions. It's been such a delight to be able to speak with you about these different topics today, because they're so macro and micro at different times. Oscillating between the two is always a bit of fun. But thank you so much for taking the time and the thought process behind this discussion as well. I'm sure there'll be many more opportunities for you and I as well to have discussions in the future. And I'd also like to encourage as well the audience members to really reach out to us, have a discussion. If you would like to connect with us, it is very easy to do so. We both have many social platforms as well as incredible websites. So please don't be shy. Reach out if you have questions about our discussion today, of course, but then also how we can assist you, how we can elevate your business or elevate your audience, depending on your perspective, as we discussed. And we'd be delighted to have that discussion with you. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been wonderful. I've learned so much, and I'll take that forward in my business dealings as well. Thank you.
Great chatting with you. And I think we only scratched the surface anyway.
Oh, I know. You scratch the surface, but the depths of the water just keep going. And that's for another time. But we'd also like to thank our audience as well for listening. We really are curious to hear, what were your takeaways from this? What were some moments where you thought, I have never framed it like that. I've never thought about the power of this particular business strategy or way of approaching your audience, or different sections of the audience. So comment, when you do see this particular discussion, please do comment. Let us know what you think about it. If there are particular areas you'd like to hear more about, of course, let us know about that too, and we may be able to cater to this. So we're wishing you all the best. From Iraq and myself, we wish you all the best in your businesses as well. We want you to be successful and enjoy the process. So that's all from me today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you for joining us to uplevel your business, skills, and knowledge. Click the links below and subscribe to the Clarified Solutions social media platforms to receive regular updates. Weekly resources will be provided, along with gifts, to assist you in your journey in upleveling your business expertise and confidence. We look forward to continuing to support you in your journey as you become the leaders and the business experts you wish to be.